The Legend of Zelda series has grown immensely since the first game was released in 1986, and most of the games since then have had Link as the main character. But what if the series temporarily strayed away from Link and made a game with a different character that has been seen previously in the series? Well, today we will be discussing which characters could work for this and how the games could look. But before we get into the video, I would like to make a quick announcement. I have created a Discord server. If you'd like to join to get Simply Zelda news and discuss Zelda topics with other fans, the link will be in the description. The first character on the list is none other than Sheik. There are a few different possibilities for what a Sheik game could look like, but there are two that I believe make the most sense. The first would be a game set at some point in the 7-year period that Link was asleep in the Temple of Time. Maybe the game could give more details on how Zelda became Sheik, and the troubles she experienced during that time. This would honestly be very interesting to see, and could make for a very interesting game. Another idea would be a game set in the Hero Downfall timeline, where the Hero of Time fails to defeat Ganon, and Hyrule is left in ruin. We actually found out a couple of years ago that a game similar to this was planned in the early 2000s. The game looked to be very dark and would have had the last male Sheikah as the main protagonist. This concept would also work very well if Sheik was the protagonist. Maybe Sheik could still find a way to defeat Ganon in the post-apocalyptic world, especially considering Sheik is Zelda in disguise, and would have the Triforce of Wisdom and her evil sealing power. Sheik would also be a great character from a gameplay perspective, since the Sheikah are a ninja-like tribe that have certain magical abilities. This would allow for an expansive combat system, great controllability, and some unique mechanics. That is, of course, if they gave the game the time that it would need. But if they did, it would most definitely produce a revolutionary experience. Next up is everyone's favorite merchant, Beedle. Beedle has appeared in multiple mainline games and left his mark on all of them. But how would a game with Beedle as the main character work? Honestly, I couldn't see a Beedle game being anything more than a random spin-off game. Beedle as a character just doesn't have many main character traits. But I do think there's one way it could work, even though it isn't very likely. The idea would be to go the route of a sort of alternate universe. And in this universe, instead of Link being the hero, it would be Beedle. It could start with Beedle as a kid living a normal life, when suddenly some event happens that starts him on his journey to becoming a hero. You know, like almost every Zelda game. This of course is extremely unlikely, but it would be extremely funny to see. One of the most interesting characters in the Zelda series is Ganondorf, the main villain of the games. He comes in many forms, but in this case I will be talking about his human form. Now there are many different directions in which this theoretical game could go, but there are two that I think would be the most likely. The first is a game that dives into Ganondorf's origins. This game would most likely take place when Ganondorf was born, and end around the events of Ocarina of Time. It would be very cool to get more insight on his past, and overall find out more about how he got to the point he is at now. It could also allow for new characters, and could explain how Demise's curse fell onto Ganondorf. The second possibility, in my eyes, would be an entirely new game. Maybe after Tears of the Kingdom, Ganondorf will come face to face with Demise, and then the curse will be broken, causing him to become good. This would allow for the next game in the franchise to possibly star Ganondorf. I'm not exactly sure what the plot for this game would be, but I'm sure the devs at Nintendo could brainstorm some fantastic ideas. Having a game starring Ganondorf would also allow for some great gameplay, because the Gerudo are nimble in combat and are generally very skilled. This would work even better considering that Ganondorf is a wizard of sorts, allowing for some very interesting mechanics and gameplay. The next is one that I'm sure not many would expect, but I think could work very well, and that is Marin from Link's Awakening. Marin is a beloved character that was shared with many more in the recent remake of the game. She lives on the island of Koholint, and at the end of the game is turned into a seagull before the island disappears, allowing her to go off and explore other islands. For this theoretical game, I can only see two options. The first and the less likely option would be a game centered around her adventures before Link came to Koholint. This probably wouldn't work though, because the events of the game most likely wouldn't be very exciting or interesting. Though I'm sure if it was done right, it could bring a fun and wholesome experience. Now for the more likely and more exciting option. This game would begin after the events of Link's Awakening, when Marin lands on the island and is turned back into a human. Though she would soon find out that this island is much different than anywhere she has been. This island is filled with monsters, much more than Koholint Island, and they are also much more vicious. This would cause Marin to use her surroundings and survive on this island, while trying to find a way to escape. This option makes a lot more sense to me, and makes a lot more sense from a gameplay perspective. It would of course be more exciting, and would allow for an interesting narrative. The final character is none other than Zelda, and even though her name is in every single game, she has never really been the main character in any of them. So I think it would make a lot of sense to make a game with Zelda as the star. Now this game could work in many different ways, and I don't want to waste your time with a huge description of all of them. So I'll just go ahead and summarize some of the ideas. The first is a game starring a Zelda we have already seen in the games. For example, a game starring Zelda from Skyward Sword, or Zelda/Tetra from The Wind Waker. There are plenty of these characters that we have seen that could very easily appear again sometime, only this time as the main character. The second is a new Zelda that hasn't been seen yet. This would also work well because it could start the same way as many of the current games start, only this time the incarnation of Link would be swapped with the new incarnation of Zelda. The game could center around Zelda's journey to find her power, and then possibly seal either Ganon or some other evil away. Either of these would also work well from a gameplay perspective, because as we have seen in games like Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, Zelda as a character has some fun and impressive combat, and I'm sure Nintendo could brainstorm some ideas to make it fit in a traditional Zelda game. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing so you don't miss out on future content. Dropping a like and comment are also very much appreciated, because it let me know your thoughts and help push the video to others who might enjoy it. Since I'm currently on winter break, you can expect a few more videos over the coming weeks. Thanks for watching. This has been Simply Zelda.